I still remember the day my childhood officially ended. It wasn't when I left for college or got my first job. It was my 14th birthday when my parents canceled my long-promised party at the last minute because my younger brother threw a tantrum. The look in my Aunt Celia's eyes when she found out told me everything I needed to know about family loyalty. That day changed everything about how I saw myself and my place in our home. Before I dive into how my family's betrayal shaped my entire life, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever had your dreams crushed by the people meant to protect them. Growing up in our suburban home in Pennsylvania, I was always the responsible one. From as early as I can remember, my parents drilled into me the importance of being mature, setting a good example, and putting family first. I took those lessons to heart, getting good grades, helping around the house, and rarely causing trouble. My younger brother, just 4 years behind me, lived by entirely different rules. My brother learned early that tantrums, tears, and fits would get him whatever he wanted. While I saved my allowance for things I needed, he received expensive gifts for no reason at all. When I broke a glass, I lost privileges for a week. When he broke the television by throwing a remote in anger, my parents soothed him and bought a bigger one. The disparity was so obvious that even my teachers noticed, asking in concerned tones during parent-teacher conferences about the tension at home. The only adult who seemed to see the unfairness was my Aunt Celia, my mother's younger sister. Unlike my parents, Celia treated me like I mattered. When she visited, she brought 2 identical gifts, ensuring I wasn't left out when my brother received something special. She listened when I talked, remembered my interests, and made me feel visible in a household where I often felt like a ghost. As my 14th birthday approached, I dared to hope things would be different. For months, I had been asking for an actual birthday party at the local arcade. Every previous birthday had been overshadowed by some crisis involving my brother, but this year my parents had finally promised me something special. I even saved $200 from my paper route and odd jobs to contribute to the cost, hoping this investment would cement the commitment. The planning process filled me with genuine excitement. My mother and I created invitations together, spent evenings planning the menu, and even booked the party room at Starlight Arcade, the coolest place in our town. For once, I felt like the center of attention as we discussed games, pizza, toppings, and the guest list. I invited 15 friends from school, including Amanda, the girl I'd had a crush on since 6th grade. When she confirmed she was coming, I couldn't stop smiling for days. 3 days before the party, the first warning signs appeared. We were having dinner when my brother started asking questions about my upcoming celebration. With each detail I shared, his expression darkened. "Who cares about stupid arcade games anyway?" he muttered, stabbing at his meatloaf. My parents exchanged that look they always shared when they were communicating silently about us. My father cleared his throat and said, "Let's remember we want to keep things flexible. Plans can always change." The casual way he said it sent a chill through me. Aunt Celia, who was visiting for dinner that night, narrowed her eyes at my father. "Surely not this close to the day," she said. "Invitations have gone out. Reservations made." My mother laughed too quickly. "Of course not. Everything's all set." Later that evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I overheard my parents arguing in their bedroom. Their voices carried through the heating vent that connected our rooms. "We cannot always put one child first," my mother said, her voice tight with tension. "He's just going through a phase," my father replied. "The other one understands. He always does. The other one. Not even my name. Just the other one." Despite the knot forming in my stomach, I reassured myself that even my parents wouldn't cancel a birthday party with less than 72 hours' notice. I had invitations out, friends excited, and $200 of my own money invested. Some things were sacred even in our family. I was wrong. The night before my birthday, I was in my room putting the final touches on a playlist for the party when I heard my brother's scream from downstairs. The familiar sound of his rage-filled tantrum echoed through the house, followed by my parents' placating voices trying to calm him. I turned up my music, trying to block it out, but 20 minutes later, my father knocked on my door. "Family meeting in the living room," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Now, please." In the living room, my brother sat smugly on the couch beside my mother, his eyes still red from crying, but a satisfied look on his face. My father stood by the fireplace, looking at the floor. The energy in the room told me everything before anyone spoke. "We need to talk about tomorrow." My mother began, her voice artificially bright. "There's been a slight change of plans." My heart sank as she explained that my brother had been invited to an exclusive day at Adventure Kingdom, the amusement park an hour away. Only 10 kids from his class were chosen, and it was an incredible opportunity that unfortunately fell on my birthday. They had tried everything to make both events work, but ultimately decided to cancel my party so they could drive my brother and his friends to the amusement park. "You're 14 now," my father added. "Old enough to understand that sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family." I stared at them in disbelief. "What about my friends? The reservations? My $200? "We'll reimburse you," my mother said quickly. "And you can have a party another time." When I asked, my voice breaking, "When would I have it?" "Next week, when everyone will be talking about how I canceled my own birthday party. Next month, when it's not even my birthday anymore." My brother smirked. "Stop being such a baby. It's just a stupid arcade." "That's enough," my father said, but there was no real reprimand in his voice. "The decision is made. We need you to call your friends tonight and let them know." The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. "You want me to call everyone and cancel? What am I supposed to say?" "Just tell them something came up," my mother suggested. "Family emergency." I looked at my brother, who was now texting excitedly on his phone, already moving on from destroying my special day. This wasn't a family emergency. This was a pattern of always putting him first, of teaching him that his desires trumped everyone else's needs, of showing me where I really stood in our family hierarchy. That night, I made 16 humiliating phone calls. With each one, I died a little inside, especially the call to Amanda, who didn't sound like she believed my vague explanation. Several friends asked if they could come over anyway for cake, but I had to tell them my parents would be out all day. By the time I finished, it was past midnight. I lay in bed, 14 years old, watching the digital clock flip to show my birthday had officially begun, feeling completely alone. When I woke up the next morning, the house was already empty. On the kitchen counter was a $20 bill and a note, "Happy birthday, pizza money for dinner. Back around 9. Love, Mom and Dad." I stood in our silent kitchen, surrounded by the party decorations we'd bought that would never be used, the special birthday breakfast my mother had promised, nowhere to be seen. They hadn't even waited to wish me happy birthday in person. The finality of it crushed something inside me. I went back to my room, pulled the covers over my head, and tried to disappear. Around noon, my phone kept buzzing with birthday messages from friends and awkward questions about what really happened to the party. The worst was a group photo from Amanda and several other guests at the mall food court with the caption, "Made our own party since yours got canceled." What really happened? The social fallout was beginning, and I had no good explanation that wouldn't make me look pathetic. The doorbell rang at 2 p.m. When I opened it, Aunt Celia stood there holding a small chocolate cake with a single candle. Her expression was a mixture of compassion and barely contained fury. "I heard what happened," she said simply. "Get your jacket." In her car, as we drove to a restaurant in the next town, the dam finally broke. All the hurt, confusion, and anger poured out as I told her everything. Unlike my parents, she didn't interrupt or make excuses. She just listened, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief. "You know this isn't right, don't you?" she finally said as we sat over burgers and fries. "What they're doing to you. What they're teaching your brother. None of this is normal or okay." It was the first time any adult had validated my feelings instead of telling me to be understanding. "You deserve to be celebrated too," she continued, her voice firm. "Your feelings matter just as much as his do. Don't let them convince you otherwise." Her words were a lifeline, the first suggestion that maybe I wasn't wrong to feel betrayed. We spent the afternoon together, and for a few hours I forgot about the disaster at home. When she dropped me off, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "This won't be forever. Remember that." I ate cold pizza alone that night, watching TV in the empty house until I heard my family return around 9:30. They came through the door, laughing, arms full of Adventure Kingdom bags and souvenirs. My brother spotted me on the couch and immediately launched into a detailed account of their awesome day, showing off the expensive merchandise our parents had bought. My mother set a plastic-wrapped souvenir cupcake on the coffee table. "We brought you something," she said, as if this made everything fine. "Did you have a good day?" my father asked, his tone suggesting the only acceptable answer was yes. Something broke inside me. "No," I said. "I had a terrible day. The worst birthday of my life." My mother's smile faltered. "Don't be dramatic. You're too old for this kind of reaction. Too old for what, a birthday party? Or expecting my parents to keep their promises?" "That's enough," my father warned. "Your brother had a special opportunity." "He always has special opportunities," I shot back, "and they always come at my expense." My brother rolled his eyes. See, this is why we didn't stay home. You're just jealous. You should be over this by now, my mother added. It's just a party. It wasn't just a party. It was years of being second best of learning that my needs would always be sacrificed of watching my brother become increasingly entitled while I became increasingly invisible. As I looked at their defensive, annoyed expressions, I realized with perfect clarity that this pattern would continue indefinitely unless something changed. I went to my room without another word and cried myself to sleep, reaching the emotional rock bottom of my young life. My birthday had become a perfect microcosm of my existence in our family, and the pain of that realization was almost unbearable. I was surprised to hear Aunt Celia's voice downstairs the next morning. She rarely visited 2 days in a row, and her tone sounded unusually serious. I crept to the top of the stairs to listen. What you did was cruel, she was saying to my parents. Do you have any idea what message you're sending to both your children? This is none of your business, my father responded stiffly. He called me crying yesterday, Celia countered. That makes it my business. You're teaching one child that his wants trump everyone else's needs, and you're teaching the other that he doesn't matter. He's just being dramatic, my mother said dismissively. He needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around him. The irony of that statement left me breathless. Celia laughed without humor. Is that what you think is happening here? Because from where I'm standing, this family revolves entirely around one person and it's not him. The argument continued with my parents making excuses and minimizing while Celia refused to back down. When my father suggested she was overstepping, she didn't waver. Someone needs to advocate for him because you're not doing it, she said firmly. He's a great kid who deserves better than this. Much better. Then she said something that changed the course of my life. I want him to come stay with me for the summer. Give him some space to understand that this isn't how families are supposed to work. My father immediately refused, but my mother was quieter, perhaps recognizing some truth in her sister's words. The conversation shifted to the logistics and details of such an arrangement, and I returned to my room, mind racing with the possibility of escape. Later that day, Celia found me alone and laid out her proposal. She lived in a neighboring city about 40 minutes away and had a spare bedroom in her apartment. I could stay with her until school started again in September. The decision to leave even temporarily was both terrifying and exciting. It meant admitting that something was fundamentally broken in our family dynamic, but also offered hope that a different kind of life was possible. Think about it, she said. This is your choice, not mine or theirs. It took 3 days of tension at home to make my decision. 3 days of my brother's continued smugness, my parents' expectation that I should be over it already, and the painful realization that nothing would change if I stayed. I told Celia yes. My parents' reactions were predictable. My father accused Celia of turning me against them. My mother cried and asked what people would think. My brother seemed momentarily shaken that his actions had pushed me to such an extreme response, but quickly reverted to his usual self-centered perspective, asking if he could have my room while I was gone. 2 weeks after my birthday disaster, I packed 2 suitcases and moved into Celia's apartment. The summer that followed transformed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. Away from the constant comparison to my brother and free from walking on eggshells around my parents' favoritism, I began to discover who I actually was. Celia's parenting style was completely different. She had clear expectations and consequences, but they applied consistently. For the first time, I experienced what it felt like to live in an environment where the rules didn't constantly shift beneath my feet. She taught me about healthy boundaries, about recognizing manipulative behavior, and most importantly, about my inherent value as a person, separate from what I could do for others. Your worth isn't measured by how much you sacrifice, she told me one evening. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. A month into my stay, Celia surprised me by organizing a belated birthday celebration. She invited neighbors from her apartment building and some teenage children of her colleagues. These kids didn't know my history or my brother and treated me with a simple respect I wasn't accustomed to. We played laser tag, ate cake, and for a few hours I experienced the normal celebration I'd been denied. The distance from my family gave me perspective I couldn't have gained otherwise. I began to see that the dynamics in our home weren't my fault, that my parents' choices reflected their issues, not my value. I stopped internalizing the message that I was less deserving of care and attention. Through conversations with Celia and the breathing room of a healthy environment, I developed an emotional independence that would serve me for years to come. By August, I had changed. Not just in confidence or outlook, but in my understanding of what I would and wouldn't accept in relationships. When it came time to discuss my return home for the school year, I was ready for the conversation in a way I couldn't have been before. The last week of summer, my parents drove to Celia's apartment for what she had termed a family reset meeting. They seemed shocked by the physical changes in me after just 2 months. I'd grown taller, started working out at the community center, and had a new haircut and style that reflected my emerging identity rather than my mother's preferences. More surprising to them was my newfound voice. With Celia's support, I clearly outlined what needed to change if I was to return home. I would no longer accept being treated as less important than my brother. I expected my parents to enforce the same rules for both of us. And I wanted regular one-on-one time with each parent time that wouldn't be canceled because of my brother's demands. "This isn't a negotiation," I said when my father started to object. "These are my boundaries. You don't have to agree, but I need you to understand that I won't come back to the way things were." My mother looked wounded. "We've always done our best for both of you." "I know you believe that," I replied with a maturity that seemed to startle her. "But your best has hurt me over and over again. I need more than good intentions now." To my surprise, they agreed to try. They didn't fully understand or accept my perspective, but the reality of potentially losing me to Celia's home permanently was enough to make them compromise. We established a family therapy appointment for the week after my return, and my parents reluctantly acknowledged that some changes were necessary. My brother's reaction when I returned home was a mixture of resentment and bewilderment. The compliant, self-sacrificing sibling he was accustomed to manipulating had been replaced by someone with clear boundaries and expectations. The first time I refused to change my plans to accommodate his last-minute request, he nearly short-circuited with confusion. "But I really want to go now," he insisted, using the tone that always worked before. "I already have plans," I responded calmly. "You can go tomorrow or find someone else." His tantrum didn't move me, and my parents, though clearly uncomfortable, stuck to our agreement and didn't pressure me to give in. It was the first crack in a lifetime of patterns, and though change didn't happen overnight, it was the beginning of a new family dynamic. The months that followed were challenging. Old habits died hard, and there were many heated discussions and setbacks. Family therapy revealed layers of issues beyond just the favoritism, including my father's own childhood as the responsible one, and my mother's fear of conflict that made her give in to the loudest demands. Understanding the roots of our dysfunction didn't excuse it, but did help us address it more effectively. By the time I turned 18 and prepared to leave for college, our family had reached a new equilibrium. Not perfect, but vastly improved from where we started. My relationship with my parents was based on mutual respect rather than expectation, and while we would never be exceptionally close, we had found a way to be family without sacrificing my self-worth. My brother's journey was longer and more complex. The entitlement fostered throughout his childhood didn't disappear easily, and our relationship remained strained through his teenage years. It wasn't until he was 22, after a series of failed relationships and job losses resulting from his inability to handle disappointment, that he began his own process of growth. His apology came unexpectedly during a holiday gathering at Celia's home. He pulled me aside after dinner and acknowledged, without excuses, the role he'd played in the family dysfunction and the pain he'd caused me. "I didn't understand what they were doing to both of us," he said. "How they were setting me up to fail at real life while teaching you to expect nothing for yourself. It was the beginning of a new relationship between us, one built on honesty rather than competition. Today in my 30s, I can say that we're actually friends, something I never thought possible during those painful early years. My professional life flourished in ways my parents never expected. The resilience and emotional intelligence I developed through navigating our family dynamics became strengths in my career. My personal relationships benefited from my early lessons in recognizing unhealthy patterns and establishing clear boundaries. Aunt Celia remains my rock and chosen family. When I got married, she was the one who walked me down the aisle. The values she taught me during that pivotal summer guide my own parenting now. My children are being raised with consistency, respect, and the firm knowledge that their worth is inherent, not earned through performance or compliance. The journey of healing from childhood wounds is ongoing. There are still moments when old insecurities surface, when I question whether I deserve care or consideration. But these moments grow rarer as the years pass, and my foundation of self-worth strengthens. I've learned that family loyalty should never require the sacrifice of your dignity or self-respect. That sometimes the adults who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. That creating boundaries isn't selfish but essential for healthy relationships. And perhaps most importantly, that family can be created by choice rather than just by birth. The pain of that 14th birthday gifted me something valuable, the knowledge that I could survive betrayal and emerge stronger with a clearer sense of who I am and what I deserve. That canceled party became the catalyst for reclaiming my life, and for that unexpected gift I can now feel a measure of gratitude. Have you ever had to create strong boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family dysfunction. Remember that your experiences matter and deserving respect isn't selfish, it's essential. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it brings some comfort to anyone walking a similar path.